This is the second of a sequence of videos that let you experience the graphics library Tkinter TTK. Here is a quick solution to to-dos 1 and 2 in the M6 Tkinter practice module. If by some chance you have not yet done those to-dos, pause this video now and do those to-dos before resuming this video. For to-do 1, I will put my name as usual. For to-do number 2, I will construct a Tkinter.tk object and then apply the main loop method to that object. I'm going to put that second line of code way down at the bottom of main, below to-do number 9, since the other to-dos will require code between the construction of the tk object and applying the main loop method to it. If you put your root.mainLoop statement up above in to-do number 2, pause the video now and move that root.mainLoop statement down to below to-do number 9, as I have done. Okay, let's now look at the m2e module. It introduces other widgets, namely frame and button and label. By the way, the word widget means any visual thing in a graphical user interface, that is, in a GUI. First, let's run m2e. As you see, it brings up a window that has two things visible on it, a button and what is called a label, which is just some words or a picture. Already the button has some functionality. For example, pressing it gives the usual visual feedback when a button in an application is pressed. But of course the button does not do anything, since we have not yet told Tkinter TTK what to do. Now let's look at the code. At the beginning of main, we construct a Tkinter.tk object, calling it root, as before. And at the end of main, we take that root object and apply the main loop to it. In between, we start by constructing a TTK frame object, placing it on the root with padding 10. When you do M6, experiment with the padding number and you'll see what that does. After we construct the frame, we grid it. Grid is what's called a layout manager. It lays the widgets out on the GUI. Grid by default places one widget and then the next thing gridded immediately below it and the next one immediately below it, that, and so forth. For now, all you have to remember is that you must grid the widget for it to show up. If your widget doesn't show up, the first thing you check is whether you forgot to grid it. A frame is a container object. It contains other widgets inside it. We usually put a TTK frame onto the root and then put the other widgets onto the frame. That's what we've done here, and you should do the same. You can have multiple frames on a root also if you wish. The next line of code creates a TTK button, placing it on the frame, with the words on the button being forward. We call the button Go Forward button, and the line after it, line 23, grids the button, that is, places it on the screen, here the first thing, the topmost thing on the frame. The line after that, line 25, does similarly for a label, constructs a TTK label, placing it on the frame, with the text being curiouser and curiouser, said Alice, the last part cut off on the video here. A label is just like a button, except that pressing the label doesn't do anything like a button would. It then grids that label, placing it below the button. And then as before, we have the root.mainLoop that enters the event loop and makes Tkinter sit there waiting for events to happen, here mostly button presses. Again, the button presses do nothing at this point because we haven't told Tkinter what to do. Now it's your turn again. Go to the M6 module and do to-dos 3 and 4 in that module. After having done so, continue on to the next model, m2e. It will show a solution to to-dos 3 and 4 on M6, but of course attempt that solution yourself and then and only then continue to m2e to check your solution. Before you go, here's a quick summary of the notation for a TTK frame, TTK button, and TTK label. Don't forget to experiment with the padding when you make your TTK frame.